The Mormon Church is entering 2026 with some of the biggest organizational changes we've seen in years, from artificial intelligence inside church leadership to a massive missionary expansion, to changes affecting women, conference schedules, and Sunday worship. Mormon leaders say these adjustments will strengthen the church. Critics say they're signs of an institution adapting to modern pressures. Today we'll examine 5 major changes announced by LDS leadership that could impact millions of members worldwide. Part 1. AI officially enters church leadership. For decades, Mormon leaders relied on manuals, handbooks, and hierarchical guidance. Now, church leadership has officially incorporated artificial intelligence into its administrative systems. In 2025, the church introduced an AI-powered handbook search assistant and later added official AI guidelines into the general handbook itself. This means local leaders now have access to AI-assisted tools when navigating church policies and procedures. The LDS Church insists the technology is only a support tool, but critics are already asking a provocative question. If prophets receive revelation from God, why are church leaders increasingly relying on artificial intelligence? The integration didn't happen all at once. It happened in stages, quiet stages, stages that almost no one outside Salt Lake City was paying attention to. In March of 2025, the Gospel Library app was updated. Buried inside that update was a new feature, an AI-powered search assistant built directly into the General Handbook of Instructions, the same document that governs every bishop, every stake president, every local leader in the worldwide Mormon Church. For the first time in Mormon history, a local leader looking for guidance on a delicate question, a disciplinary matter, a temple recommend issue, a doctrinal interpretation, could ask an algorithm instead of consulting another human. Then came December of 2025. The church updated the General Handbook itself. A new section appeared, Section 38.8.47. 4 official principles for how members and leaders should use artificial intelligence in church work. The document stated plainly that AI cannot replace divine inspiration, that it cannot substitute for meaningful relationships with God. But the principles were now there, in writing, inside the most authoritative administrative document in the Mormon faith. Senior leaders, including Elder Garrett W. Gong of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, have been openly promoting AI integration since at least 2024. Elder Gong has addressed church employees, BYU audiences, and even a Vatican summit on AI ethics, talking about how the church should adopt artificial intelligence as a tool to support the ongoing restoration. And this is where the contradiction becomes harder to ignore. The Mormon Church teaches that its prophets receive direct revelation from God, that the Holy Ghost guides every worthy leader. That truth is delivered through inspiration, not through human systems. So why would the institution need an algorithm to help interpret its own handbook? Critics argue the answer is uncomfortable. The General Handbook has become so complex, so administratively dense, that even full-time leaders struggle to navigate it. The arrival of AI isn't just a technology story. It's an admission that the institution itself has grown beyond what human inspiration alone can manage. Part 2. Massive Missionary Expansion. The church announced the creation of 55 new missions worldwide, beginning in 2026. This is one of the largest missionary expansions in recent memory. Mormon leadership says growing missionary numbers require new organizational structures. The expansion will increase the church's global missionary network to more than 500 missions worldwide. For supporters, it's evidence of growth. For critics, it raises questions about whether expansion is being used to offset slowing growth in some regions. The announcement came on October 24, 2025. It was one of the first major institutional decisions made by President Dallin H. Oaks after assuming leadership of the church. The numbers behind the decision are revealing. At the end of 2022, the church had just over 65,000 missionaries. By the end of 2023, nearly 72,000. By late 2025, the global missionary force had passed 84,000 young men and women, serving in over 150 countries and teaching in more than 60 languages. The 55 new missions will take effect on July 1, 2026. When they open, the global total will reach 506, the highest number of missions in the entire history of the Mormon faith. But where exactly are these missions being created? Approximately 16 of the 55 new missions will be located in Africa, another 14 in the United States, 5 in the Philippines, 5 across the Pacific, 4 in Europe, 4 in South America, 3 in Brazil, 2 in Canada, 1 in Asia, 1 in Mexico. Roughly 1/3 of the entire expansion is concentrated on the African continent. For church supporters, the message is clear. The faith is growing. The gospel is reaching new generations. For independent researchers tracking Mormon Church growth, the picture is more complicated. Membership numbers in the United States, in Europe, and in much of Latin America have been slowing for years. Some regions show net declines once inactive members are accounted for. The aggressive expansion into Africa mirrors a pattern observed in many other global religious institutions. When growth flattens in traditional regions, resources shift toward areas where the institution can still grow. The expansion isn't simply about more missionaries. It is about repositioning the global footprint of the entire church. Part 3. Women can now serve missions at 18. One of the most significant policy changes announced by church leadership involves young women. For years, women had to wait longer than men before serving missions. That has changed. Church leadership lowered the minimum missionary age for women from 19 to 18, matching the age requirement for men. Church officials expect a major increase in female missionary participation. Some members celebrate the move as greater opportunity. Others see it as another example of the church gradually adapting long-standing traditions. The announcement came on November 21, 2025. It was signed by the First Presidency, President Dallin H. Oaks, President Henry B. Eyring, President D. Todd Christofferson. The change took effect immediately. To understand the weight of this decision, you have to understand the history. For most of the 20th century, the rules were rigid. Young men could serve at 19. Young women had to wait until 21. The reasoning was theological. Missionary service was framed as a priesthood responsibility, and in Mormon doctrine, only men hold the priesthood. That structure was broken in October of 2012. President Thomas S. Monson lowered the age for men to 18 and for women to 19. The result was immediate. Mission applications doubled within days. The female missionary population exploded. Before 2012, women made up only 12% of the missionary force. By the mid-2020s, that figure had reached 29%. Roughly 25,000 of the church's 85,000 missionaries were now women. Now, just 13 years later, the rules have shifted again. Independent church growth researcher Matt Martinich estimates the new age change could add another 5,000 to 10,000 young women to the missionary corps in the years ahead. The First Presidency framed the announcement carefully. They emphasized that missionary service is required of worthy young men as part of their priesthood duty, while remaining optional for young women. But the practical impact is enormous. Female missionaries now begin service immediately after high school. Dating patterns shift. College plans shift. Marriage timelines shift. An entire generation of young Mormon women will move through life on a faster timeline than their mothers and grandmothers ever did. Critics point out something else. Each time the church has restructured missionary age requirements, it has been in response to demographic pressure. Young people leaving the faith, slowing convert numbers. The decision to equalize the age may be presented as inspiration, but the timing suggests something more strategic. Part 4. General Conference is being restructured. Beginning in 2026, the LDS Church will discontinue the traditional Saturday evening session of General Conference. For many members, that session had been part of Mormon culture for generations. Leadership says the change is intended to simplify conference participation, but for observers, it represents yet another adjustment to long-established church traditions. A pattern some believe has accelerated in recent years. The announcement came on November 19, 2025. The First Presidency stated that beginning in April of 2026, General Conference would consist of 4 daytime sessions only. The Saturday evening session, in any form, would no longer exist. For longtime members, this is not a small adjustment. The Saturday evening session has carried different identities across the decades. For many years, it hosted the priesthood session, a men-only meeting. Then a women's session was added to the Saturday evening time slot during October conferences. In 2017, the church separated those sessions further. In 2021, the Saturday evening session was discontinued, then quickly reinstated as a general session open to all members. Now, in 2026, the church is ending it entirely. Officially, the reasoning offered by the First Presidency is focus. By concentrating on 4 daytime sessions, the church says members will be able to engage more fully with conference content. The shorter format will reduce travel demands on church leaders who fly in from around the world. Attention spans, especially among younger members, will be easier to capture. Critics see a different pattern. In the last decade alone, the Mormon Church has shortened Sunday services from 3 hours to 2. It has reduced the number of midweek meetings. It has discontinued home teaching and visiting teaching as formal programs. It has repeatedly trimmed institutional demands on members. Each individual change is presented as inspired modernization. Taken together, they describe an institution slowly, carefully, reducing the time it asks of its own people. The Mormonism of 1990 was an enormous time commitment. The Mormonism of 2026 looks dramatically lighter. Whether this is a gospel-centered improvement or an institutional retreat depends entirely on who you ask. Part 5. Changes to Sunday, Worship and Class Structure. Church leadership also announced adjustments to the Sunday class schedule beginning in 2026. Leaders say the goal is to strengthen discipleship and home-centered gospel learning. While the details may appear administrative, these changes affect weekly worship for millions of members worldwide. Combined with handbook revisions, AI integration, missionary expansion, and conference restructuring, many members are noticing that the Church of 2026 looks increasingly different from the church they knew just a few years ago. The official announcement came on March 30th, 2026, in a letter from the First Presidency. The changes will take effect on September 6, 2026, and they directly affect how every Mormon family experiences Sunday worship. Under the old structure, the 2-hour Sunday block alternated. 1 week, members attended Sunday school. The next week, they attended Relief Society, priesthood quorum, or young women meetings. That alternating pattern is now gone. Under the new structure, the 2-hour block still begins with a 60-minute sacrament meeting, but the second hour will look completely different. Adults and youth will now attend a 25-minute Sunday school class every single week, followed by a 25-minute Relief Society, priesthood quorum, or young women meeting every week. Without alternation, children will attend a 55-minute primary class. For young women and Aaronic priesthood quorums, the curriculum itself is changing. The new lessons will be drawn from the updated For the Strength of Youth Guide, with 1 chapter per month. The Strength of Youth magazine, starting in September of 2026, will provide additional supporting content. For supporters, this is a positive evolution. Tighter, more focused lessons, less time spent in meetings, more energy redirected toward home-centered gospel study. For critics, the pattern is now unmistakable. In a single calendar year, the Mormon Church has restructured its missionary force, lowered the female missionary age, eliminated a session of General Conference, embedded artificial intelligence into its handbook, and now restructured the Sunday class schedule. 5 major changes. 12 months. This is not the pace of an institution standing still. Mormon leaders describe these changes as inspired adjustments designed to strengthen the church. Critics argue they reveal an institution under pressure to modernize and adapt. Either way, 2026 is shaping up to be a year of significant change for Mormonism. The Artificial Intelligence Handbook update would alone have been historic. Combined with a missionary expansion of this size, a generational shift in female missionary participation, a permanent restructuring of General Conference, and a redesign of Sunday worship, the picture becomes harder to ignore. For decades, the Mormon Church positioned itself as an institution anchored in unchanging principles, a faith built on continuing revelation, but resistant to cultural pressure. The events of 2025 and 2026 tell a different story. This is not the same church it was 10 years ago. It is not even the same church it was 3 years ago. The pace of change is accelerating. The question is no longer whether the institution is adapting. The question is what the church will look like when the adaptation is complete. Which of these changes do you think will have the biggest impact on the future of the LDS Church? Let me know in the comments below. If this is the kind of investigation you want to see more of, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're tracking every major shift inside the Mormon Church as it happens. And in the next video, we'll be going even deeper into one of these announcements that mainstream media is refusing to talk about.